Hey Talk Shop fans, I have a very exciting announcement. Join me and Fenimore Lane at the Mayflower Inn and Spa in Washington, Connecticut for a celebration of design on Saturday, May 18th. Journey to the countryside to shop our all-day design bazaar with 2 tents and over 30 amazing vendors in the home, fashion, and lifestyle space. Or take part in our design summit with one-of-a-kind panels and speakers, including Talk Shop Season 2 guest Annie Myers-Shire of This Oak House, in conversation with me and Farrow & Ball's color expert. Feel free to bring the kids and come hungry. Danry has children's activities covered, and Lee Jofa will be hosting a beautiful picnic by the pond. It's sure to be magical, and there's no time to wait. We already sold out of our all-day passes, so to learn more and pick up your tickets, visit the link in the show notes or via my Instagram bio. I hope to see you all there.
It's interesting, too, if you saw the house that I had before this, it was all cream and off-white.
Interesting. That's so interesting.
But I had a decorator. And I remember telling that decorator, too, like, I love every color except for purple. And I cannot stand purple, and I will not have it in my house.
And lo and behold,
when it came to decorating my own house, I really have lavender or purple just sprinkled everywhere, and then have it in my bedroom. Yeah, in my bathroom. I've really come to really love lavender.
Welcome to Talk Shop. I'm Ariel Okin, a New York-based interior designer, writer, and editor, looking to bring a little bit of magic into our homes every day. After years as a writer and editor in the interiors world, I founded my own editorial site, Fenimore Lane, in 2020, and the Talk Shop interview series was born. Each week, I delve into the personal experiences of the top interior designers and tastemakers around the globe. This week's guest is Caroline Gidiere, an acclaimed interior designer and tastemaker based in Birmingham, Alabama. Caroline's design aesthetic is a modern take on traditional interiors, using beautiful pieces and classic textiles to create spaces that are fresh and timeless. Raised in the South, Caroline's principles of design were absorbed by watching her mother, a talented seamstress who wasn't afraid of a complicated pattern or roll of wallpaper. But Caroline didn't always work in design. After years as a business and litigation lawyer, where she even clerked for a federal judge, Caroline eventually found her way to design full-time with the help of her husband after designing her own home, which was featured on the cover of Veranda Magazine in 2020. Please join me as we welcome Caroline to the podcast. Caroline, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy that you're here.
Ariel, the honor is all mine. I could not be more honored and thankful that you thought of me and reached out. I'm just thrilled to be here.
Oh my God, of course. Well, to kick off the conversation, we've been asking everyone who comes on, can you describe your style in 3 words or less?
Okay, and I'm not sure that I've got it right. Know thyself, the Oracle of Delphi. I'm not sure I'm there yet. I'll spend a lifetime, but I think for sure I have to say colorful.
Yes.
Although I love a neutral palette, but primarily colorful. And I would say classic. I feel like traditional has been overused a little bit in the past decade. So I'm going to call it classic. And then I also thought I would say continental, because I do like primarily French and Italian antiques. And if you put all that together, I think you would end up with something close to my design.
I'm thinking about your house, and I mean, those are 3 words that practically describe your house. Well, for those who may not know, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are at this point in your career and in your life right now?
Sure. I am an interior decorator, and I live in Birmingham. I have projects all over, but we're based here in Birmingham. I have a 19-year-old who is in college, first year of college at Boulder, and I have a 14-year-old daughter.
So fun.
Yes, and I'm married. I'm a former lawyer. My husband and I met in law school, and we're law school sweethearts. We lived around a bit before we settled back in Birmingham, which is kind of in the center of the state and the biggest city in Alabama.
And the design center of Alabama.
For sure. It really is. And I think that's given publishing heritage, it tend to spawn a lot of decorators and stylists and artisans and what have you.
Yeah, I feel like Birmingham is so alive with design talent in such an exciting way. But I want to talk about your career and how you kind of were drawn to interior design, because I think your story is really a love story. So can you walk us through how your husband sort of prodded you a little bit into leaving your law career and deciding to embark a career in design? Because I think it's the sweetest story I've ever heard.
Oh, you're so sweet. And it is. And he is. Let's get that straight. I mean,
So
he is such
sweet.
a sweet and kind and thoughtful person. But a little backstory on that, we had been practicing. We had 2 children. Lou was a baby, and he was practicing as an attorney. Most of his work was out of state. And he, in fact, at that moment in time, was getting on a plane mainly on Monday mornings and heading to Dallas for the week.
Oh my God.
And I was trying cases for a week or 2 weeks at a time out of state, nothing in Alabama.
That's so hard.
Yes, it was so extremely stressful. And we kept having these showdown moments of whose career is more important. Is it more
Right.
important that you be in Dallas or that I be able to try this case as it's been scheduled?
Right.
And that is stressful in between us, but it's also stressful for the children and taking care of them and making sure that you're there when they need you and
Yeah.
everything. And we really just needed to let the steam out of the pressure cooker for sure. And, we graduated from law school, the same class and the same section. And we both clerked for federal judges, and we both lived in DC and worked for the government for a couple of years and then moved back. So we had kind of been hand in hand in this journey all the way along. But, I think women sometimes are just more keyed into the emotional vibe. And it's
Yeah.
upsetting to me to be contradictory or aggressive. I don't like to have to do that. And I don't think a lot of guys just, it's water off a duck's back. They just don't think anything about it. But it would
So true. It's just they communicate differently. There's no exclamation points in the emails. It's just
That's right. And it's not, it's not a day ruiner, and, they're not up at 2:30 in the morning, like rehashing it like I would.
100%.
So anyway, and I had a particularly difficult season, not only with work, but it's hard when you're used to being able to do a really good job and you feel like you're not being a good mom and you're not doing well at the job and you're giving more than you have to give. You know what I'm saying?
Yo, there's no worse feeling. Yeah, 100%. Especially when you have a baby and you feel like, having a baby in and of itself is a test and feeling like you don't know how to do anything, because when it's your first baby, you really actually don't know how to do anything.
That's right. Oh my gosh. And you don't know that until you get the second baby and you're like, oh my God, I was
Like,
so bad at this
I've done this
first go
before.
round.
Yes, exactly. So like that alone can make you feel terrible about yourself.
Yes.
And then add on a really high pressure job. It's ripe for feeling not so great on all fronts.
Absolutely. And it was bonus season. It was close to Christmas. And I had a boss who wrote me a long letter explaining how he had given all the value in the past year and that all the things that I had done were not.
No. Oh my God.
I know, right? So with this backdrop, I also had a friend who had been with Southern Progress. It had closed down. She had been a photo stylist. She had to find a job, and she just kind of hung out a shingle and started her own design practice. And it had never dawned on me in a million years that was possible. And so over the course of that year, we had been talking about, and Stephen kept saying, you want to do that. People are asking you all the time for help. You should charge them. You should, instead of doing this for free on weekends, you should really be doing this.
And it was something you loved. It was probably something you did for fun to like escape from the stress of your
100%.
job. Yeah.
I would spend hours doing it. Love to do it. Probably gave more than they wanted, more help than they were actually asking for when they reached out. And that Christmas, he got all of my business licenses and everything, and he put them in a folder, and he wrapped the folder up and put it under the tree.
So sweet.
I know, it's so sweet. It always like catches me in the back of the throat. I almost start crying every time I say that.
Well, it's such an amazing story. That's why I wanted to start with it because I think it's so special.
When I opened it, he said, "It's time. It's time. You need to do
I
this."
love that.
So I took a year because I'm not a lily pad hopper,
Yeah.
but I had to get all my ducks in a row. During that year, I had some friends that learned that I was going to do this, and they hired me to do several rooms in their house. And so I had like starting out the day that I started, I had a real project, with real work. And I've just been fortunate. It started with close friends and then very quickly grew beyond that. And I've made some good friends who've been really helpful and wanted to give a hand up and all around. So I can't express how fortunate I feel like I've been not only to do what I love, but to have fallen backwards into so many people that have willing to be so helpful to me.
That's amazing. I mean, what a story in terms of not only career pivot, but then success, in that pivot. And just, it makes me so happy whenever you talk about how you kind of got into the industry. And you were self-taught.
Yes. I have a mother who she passed this past year.
I know, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's an inevitable part of life. But she had this theory, which thankfully everybody else does not agree with. Otherwise, you and I would have no job. But she believed that people with good taste did not need a decorator, that this was for people who had no taste. And I have to say, my clients have better taste than I do. They educate me every day. So I'm here to testify that is not the truth. That she, and honestly, this is just, I think, her way of covering, for the fact that I don't think first of all, there were no decorators in Florence, Alabama at the time. Right. And if there were, she probably could not have afforded one anyway. But she felt like if you had good taste, you could decorate your own home. And she hung, when we were really young, little kids, I remember her hanging her own wallpaper. She knew an upholsterer in town. We spent hours and hours at the fabric store, just sitting there. And I learned from her, with her calculations. And she also made beautiful clothing for me and my little sister, my older sister. She used to make her ball gowns. She was really skilled in all of these things and just learned so much at the side of her sewing machine and in the house as she decorated her own house. And it was a really great, our house was always really great looking. And she, she was kind of self-taught and maybe just a devotee of Jackie Kennedy,
I also think it's like that era, and especially in the South, that era had so much of that imbued in the culture, and people knew how to do more in the home. And now it's like, oh, there's, a specialist for everything that you have to go out and hire. But people had more of a hands-on knowledge of how to do these things.
I think out of necessity too. I think in the South, and I learned this particularly when I worked in DC. We just part of the culture is, wearing lipstick and what kind of pretty clothing. And and I love all areas of the country, but I do recognize when I go away and come back to the South that, people do place incredible importance on their homes and decorating their homes and, in appearances. For sure, we can say that. And so, but also it's very rural. There are a lot of small towns. There didn't used to be a lot of decorators. So everybody kind of, if your house is going to be good looking, you're going to have to do it yourself or have a friend who can help you. So it's kind of out of that culture that I guess I always thought, well, you can do it yourself. You can I had a mom who figured out how to do her drapery and how to get things upholstered and hang wallpaper. So, and seeing a good friend do it too, we have to have these people in our lives that show us what can be done.
Right. And to give you the inspiration of, I can be resourceful and do that too.
Yeah. I can do that. I can do that.
Exactly.
Let's do it.
I love that. And let's talk a little bit about your love of fashion too, because you had a fashion blog at one point.
Yes, I did.
I love that. And there's so many people that we've spoken to who also had a fashion blog at one point. Paloma, Heidi Callier, like so many people. And I had one too. I mean, I was like in high school and college, but I had one too. I feel like there's such an interesting thread between like a love of fashion and a love of interiors.
Yeah, there is something there, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, just an eye for beauty, or just intrigued by things that are really good looking and keeping an eye on what's next and what's new and what's coming around, and which I love. But I had a friend who we worked out early in the morning, and she was like, I've always wanted to do a fashion blog. Will you do it with me? And I was like, okay. She showed up at my house one day and was like, let's get this figured out. So
that's so cute. I love that.
We did it. And I think it really too started me down the road of this journey, because I really kept wanting to really talk about interiors. And I don't think she was too thrilled with that. It's like,
right?
No, that's not what we're doing. But anyway.
I feel like it gave you the beginning of a creative outlet when you had such a very corporate kind of like lawyer job. It's like the polar opposite.
For sure. When I'm sitting at my desk and I don't want to start this brief, it's like, let's see what was on the Dior runway today.
Yep. I had the same experience because I went to grad school for I got my master's in public affairs, and I was working in that sort of field. And I spent every waking minute doing this on the side for free for friends. And it's so interesting how so many of us never thought of design as a career until we ended up falling into it.
Yeah. Well, that creativity, I think when you have that part of your brain, it is really hard to suppress it. And, it comes out, it like oozes out of you some way in some place. You really can't squash it.
Yeah.
Too much. And, sometimes you just have to let it go, unleash it and let her rip, see what happens.
So true. Do you feel like you use elements of your legal career in your day-to-day now as a designer?
I'm not sure that it informs so much my choices, but it informs my business for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, just understanding contracts and liability. And also, I did complex corporate litigation. So most of my clients were businessmen who ran very profitable businesses, and just that understanding of responsibility and professionalism and just the way business works and expectations.
Yep.
I'm in my office always trying to work things out and explain things for the young people right out of school, like what the expectations are for us. Like, this is our responsibility. This is not theirs. And letting my clients know, when we start putting this furniture in storage for you, you need to put your homeowner's insurance, your underwriter on notice and give them this proposal. And you need to have coverage for this. Just stuff like that I think is just really helpful. Understanding what free on board is, like whose responsibility this damage is. Is it mine or is it yours? Who picked it up? Who shipped it? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Because there's so much of that. I think people oftentimes don't realize that this job is not just picking fabrics and playing with pillows, and it is a business. And so I'm always so curious when I speak to designers who had a past life sort of in the business or corporate worlds, because I do think it really kind of helps inform the way you structure your business. And it's hugely helpful when you're running your own firm and you're operating as an entrepreneur.
For sure. It absolutely. And the thing is, life is a journey, it's a school, and you pick up the skills that you need as you move along. And
Yeah.
I don't, as much as I did not enjoy practicing law, and I really enjoy being a designer, and I'm so grateful to do it. I'm also grateful for the journey because I've just picked up the skills that I really needed
Yeah.
along the way and to get me to this point where I can do it.
It helps you be a better business owner for sure.
Sure. And I think if I didn't do that, I think I would have a lot more challenges in this work than I feel like I have. I mean, there are always challenges, there are
Right.
things, but
Different
I mean,
kinds, but
I'm
not.
not saying that I'm just like sailing through without a care in the world.
But no, it's like this getting the structure set up for a business. I mean, people oftentimes don't even know where to start. They're like, what's an LLC? Or having a really wide breadth of knowledge on that to be able to start a business is, I think few and far between really have that.
Well, I just have to say, I'm so thankful for it. You can't have the butter and the money for the butter, as the French say. So I would have liked to have both, started earlier and have the experience. But I'm thankful that I found out myself where I am now.
I love that. And let's talk about design a little bit. Is there a favorite element about the design process for you?
Well, certainly textiles are my passion. I think yours too.
Yes.
They send me into the stratosphere. I can get so lost. Fabrics and colors and patterns can take my breath away where I'm like,
I know. And I feel like that's your special sauce too. I mean, your house is such a good example of that. You are so adventurous in the way you pair colors and masterful in the way you pair colors. Like I'm thinking of that really gorgeous purple room in your house. And that's like something that can't be taught, I feel. And I think you're really intuitive with the way you do that. And it's so obvious how passionate you are about it too.
Thank you. Well, I think that
Yeah.
goes back to fashion too, like when you have a blouse and you think, oh, there's a little bit of orange in here. Maybe I should pull out this orange clutch,
Yeah.
or what have you. It's interesting too. If you saw the house that I had before this, it was all cream and off-white.
Interesting. That's so interesting.
But I had a decorator, and my mom
Wow.
came in and she was like, well, I guess you're not expecting to have babies anytime soon.
I love that. Such a mom comment too.
Yeah. She was like, I'll be interested to see how long this lasts.
Yeah. It's amazing.
And I remember telling that decorator too, like, I love every color except for purple, and I cannot stand purple, and I will not have it in my house.
And lo and behold,
When it came to decorating my own house, I really have lavender or purple just sprinkled everywhere, and
so
then
pretty.
have it in my bedroom, in my bathroom. I've really come to really love lavender, and it's hard to find when I go to the showrooms.
Yeah, purple is a very tricky genre because
It is.
it could go Barney quickly.
Yeah, it can, and it does. It is hard to find a good
Yes.
lavender.
That's so interesting because something that I've been talking with other designers about also is like how your personal style evolves over time. And if, designers have felt that and almost everybody has said yes, that your style has evolved over time and that you find yourself gravitating more or less towards different things. And so it's interesting to hear you say that about you sort of went from like a cream palette and then sort of like an explosion of color. And I think it makes sense as you've got, you had children, you changed careers, you leaned more into the creativity of becoming a designer. And I love that because I always say that our homes are sort of typically like a beautiful reflection of where we are in life.
Sure. And I think too, we all have a little bit of the prodigal son in us, in that you have to go away and do your own thing and, slough off your
Yeah.
family and your heritage and what you came from to appreciate it and come back to it and choose it
Yes.
instead of having it laid upon you as you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
I
I
had
do.
that kind of palate cleansing, literally had that moment. And then when it came to doing it all myself and making the decisions, I went straight back, just right up under the wing of my mother without realizing it.
So interesting how that happens. The prodigal son comment is so true. Also, the first apartment that I lived in the city, I was still working in education, and my apartment was like all white, super modern, because that was sort of like what was in, and I wasn't really designing it. I was helping friends on the side, but it was, I mean, if you saw what this looked like, you would not think that it was my apartment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when we moved, and this is like almost 10 years later, we moved out to the suburbs and I'm doing our house. I actually went back and looked at pictures of my house growing up and thought about what that felt like. And I think when you sort of grow up with, one parent or a set of parents that care a lot about design, it does weave its way back in somehow.
For sure. And just that nostalgia.
Yeah.
I mean, having things in our life that we see every day to kind of remind us who we are and where we came from and of the people that we love and have loved. Just all of that is wrapped up in sometimes a fabric choice or a particular chair or a little box on a table or things like that are so comforting deep on, to our souls, I think.
Yeah, it's like a core memory. When you're designing a room, what do you think is sort of like the most important thing to start with?
Well, for a client, I really need to know what they love, what excites them and what the vibe that they're going for. I think all of my interiors are really bespoke to what the client wanted for that room and in that way. And so I've got to kind of get a grasp on that first up before I can start spinning out floor plans for sure.
Right.
The room and the size of it and the function will kind of dictate that. So, and those are a little bit more perfunctory, but what I really need to spend some time marinating in is really what the client is going for and what their aesthetic is. And obviously people who are choosing me, that's not as their decorator, it's not going to be too far afield, but everybody has
no, but it's so important. Yeah, because everyone has their own story and the home should be a reflection of them. And I think you do that so beautifully.
Thank you. And they have a different way in which they're going to use a particular room.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's my job to help them navigate that and tell them where ideas sometimes won't work, and you have to use your judgment to just say, like, I totally get this, but I don't think this is going to work for these reasons. And that's why they've hired you. It's not just to say yes and end up with a mess, but to say, like, I think you'll end up not liking this for these reasons, but here's what we can do, or let's think about this. And I have also learned the longer that I do this, and I think also the older that I get, the more important it is to say yes to my clients, because my instinct was when I first started, when clients would ask for things, I would say no and explain why they couldn't do things because they were outside of my comfort zone. They were not things that I felt comfortable doing. But now I have a lot more confidence and experience. And I think, oh, okay. I had a client recently who was like, well, I really think this room calls for a conversation piece right in the middle of the room. And I was like, oh, no, I don't think so. I just don't think the room is big enough and blah, blah. And then I thought, why am I saying that? I'm saying that because I'm scared of this. I'm scared of doing this because I've never done one. I don't know where to get one. I don't know what the proportions are. Don't know. I can't say for sure how it's going to work in the room. But you know what? Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's figure out a way to get her done. And I am delighted with it. It is the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen. She's a beauty. And I found, I did my research. I found some that old decorators had done. So now I'm like, all right, I can figure these things out.
Yeah, you can go outside of your comfort zone. I think that's such a good lesson for designers and just people even that aren't in the industry work-wise, but that it's actually a good thing to be pushed out of your comfort zone because it makes you grow in whatever it is that you're doing and helps you get better. And that's something that we've talked about on the show a lot. Gil with Peter Penoyer, some of the best advice that they had to give was, some of the best work that they've done is when they're coming from a place of discomfort or they're not really sure how to tackle the challenge yet. And it kind of makes them do more research or try to sort of think of how they could do something different or outside of the box. So I love, love, love that.
Yes. And I think it's also getting to a place where you're not afraid to fail because you've seen what failure is and it can be fixed, if that makes any sense. Like,
Yeah.
I remember the first time I installed drapery on one side of the window, they were an inch too short because I'd only measured one side of the window. First pair of drapery, my friends that I was telling you about. And I was literally about to go throw up in the bathroom. I was just a wreck. And I called my workroom and was talking to her about it. And she was like, we'll just take them down and bring them out here. I'll let them lower them. I was like, you can do that? Right. She was like, oh, yeah. And she was like, I could probably have them back in like 3 days. And I was like, oh,
it's the things you learn. Yeah. I mean, and all of us have stories like that, but you learn so much from those moments and all of us have them.
Yes. And I mean, and maybe the most important thing that you learn is you can figure it out. You can find a solution. And if not, I mean, for me too, I mean, you just have to kind of step up to the plate and bite the bullet and understand the long arc of this is more important than the short term kind of balance sheet. If I've made a mistake, it's up to me to fix it because what the client is going to remember is how I solved the problem, not that I screwed it up.
Do you think there's a design rule that you always follow or any that you think are kind of made to be broken?
Yeah, I think furniture spacing, I'm really coming to realize the difference between what's on paper and what the rules are, and then what works in real life. In particular, the 18 inches between the coffee table and the sofa, really, I think is a bit far because you can't put your drink down without sitting all the way up and getting, like halfway sitting out of your seat to get your drink onto the table. So there are little things like that in real life. I start with my floor plan, but I do think you have to get in there and kind of eyeball it and scoot things around. And sometimes things feel better on paper than they do in real life. And you just kind of have to kind of move them around and the pieces tell you where they fit best once they're in the space.
I agree. I think that's a good point too. And also vice versa. Like sometimes it might look great on CAD, but in person it actually takes on a better life in some other space in the same room or needs a little more breathing room or something. Looking back through your career, have you had a mentor in your career at all? And it doesn't necessarily have to have been in interiors, but maybe it applies to how you run your firm now. And
I have been very fortunate. I have 2 really good friends in the industry who have kind of taken me under their wings and have selflessly guided and given me advice and information. And I just am so thankful for them.
Yeah.
They've been so helpful. People that I can call that give me honest, accurate information. And we share information and they've been happy to do it. Like I said, to kind of give me a hand up.
I love that. And you need that. I always say in the same way that you need mom friends once you have children, you need fellow design friends because you always need to be able to call someone and gut check something or just hash something out or just talk to someone who gets what it is that you're talking about.
Who's been through this before, who can kind of give you the long arc of
Yeah.
the narrative where you kind of are stuck in a moment. It's invaluable. I mean, just I wouldn't be where I am today without the two of them for sure.
I love that. And I mean, this kind of ties into that, but what do you think is some of the best advice for designing interiors that you've ever received, and from who, if you're willing to share?
The advice that I think of, there's like certainly travel is good advice because that's for inspiration. But James Carter actually gave me tremendous advice when I was just getting started because I had done my house with him and he's a good friend. And he kept saying to me in the process of doing my house, it was like, well, if you ever were to be a decorator, you would be really great at it because, you're so conscientious with all these details. Like I put my whole hardware schedule together and all that kind of stuff. He was like,
Oh, wow. Even before you had your firm. I love that.
yes, he was like, there are few decorators that I've worked with that are this conscientious with all the details. So you would
Right.
be really great if you ever did it. But when I went to him and said, I'm going to do this, and he said, just in the course of a conversation, it didn't just prompt him to come out with it
Yeah.
like the Oracle Delphi,
Yeah.
like, here is the information you should know. But just in the course of that conversation, he said, if you keep your overhead low, then the decisions you will make based on what's best for the design and what's best for the client and not what's best for you and your
Yeah.
office. So if you can do that, if you can, and so that's why I think I was telling him I was starting out of my house. And it was like that way you'll be properly motivated, if you will, to make the right decisions. And when you do that, then you'll gain a reputation and the trust of your clients.
I love that. And for those listening, I mean, I'm sure everyone knows, but James is a very talented architect who worked on Caroline's beautiful home, and it's so
Yes.
pretty. Speaking of your home, what do you think your home says about you?
Well, I hope that it says that I love the people that live here and I love the people that come over, and I want them to be comfortable and enjoy themselves and to feel welcome.
I love that. It is such a, I mean, through the photos from the veranda feature, it's such a happy home. It looks just
Thank
full of
you.
life and color and pattern, but also still tailored, and it's so pretty.
Thank you.
Do you have any favorite places to shop for home?
You know, Anywhere is a place to shop for home for
Yeah,
me. I mean,
so
just
true.
any place I happen to be, I have my eye out. I mean,
We're always looking, I think designers just kind of always have their eyes open.
yeah, wherever I am, I love getting things from far afield and different. I mean, there's always the Marché aux Puces, and that's fabulous and
Mm.
always is incredible. It does come with a certain level of anxiety,
Yeah.
for sure, for me with all the shipping and getting all that figured out, which I love to do. But carefree shopping, I mean, there's a great antiques market at High Point Market. I
Yeah.
love shopping in New York, in LA, and any London, anywhere I am, I'm always like looking for a bedspread or a tissue
Yeah.
box cover, or anything that I stumble across that's beautiful and kind of unique. I'm a constant shopper.
I know. I feel like we're all sort of wired to be that way. Do you collect anything? Is there anything that you kind of, or is there like a great extravagance that you love? Something like that?
I have a couple of collections. One, I collect papier-mâché, chinoiserie boxes.
Pretty.
Yeah, I'm just kind of obsessed with them. I think they're so pretty and
Yeah.
a ton of those. And then I have quite a botanical engravings collection that was started by Stephen's grandmother.
Oh, wow. That's special.
Yeah, she and her husband lived in New Orleans. And when she first got married, her mother in law her in laws gave her money to go down to the quarter to purchase antiques and furnishings for their first home. And she bought a
Oh,
pair of Redouté botanicals. And when she passed, Stephen's parents gave those to us. And we have just added to that over the years.
that's really special. I love that. Going back to what we talked about, tied up in memory and the things that we have in our home, things like that are what make a house a home and feel so special because they have a story behind them.
They do. And they tether you to your past.
Totally. This is our sort of like last question before we get into our rapid fire. I love talking to designers about where you find inspiration. Are there any, like, is it social media? Is it books, travel? And also, what do you think the 3 biggest influences on your aesthetic in your life have been?
I think for sure books on a daily basis. That's where I turn to for inspiration. Not Instagram, but I have a huge library of design books, and I'm always trying to think like who is a master at this concept that I'm going for, and try to pull those books out and look for. And I'm looking for how to do the header on a set of drapery or a pelmet or whatever,
Right.
just those kind of details. But in general, I think I'm like all of us, travel is the biggest kind of source of inspiration. I just got back from Amsterdam this fall, and the decorative arts and the house.
So nice.
So, I mean, are there any, the Dutch and the Dutch trading and all of that? I mean, just the Rijksmuseum, I need more than a day. I need a couple of days here to kind of get through all of that. It's so amazing. I just get giddy with excitement when I get stimulated in that way. But I think the 3 biggest influences on me are for sure my mother, and that's not just colonial Williamsburg and do it yourself in fashion, but it's like entertaining and all of that. Like I am who my mother made me to be.
Yeah.
I think molded from her will for sure. I spent a year in Paris, and given the number of years that I've lived, you wouldn't think it would have that much impact on me. But I think that year living there probably profoundly affected me more than anything I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Just on a fruit basket turnover, everything, and that was back before cell phones or debit cards or anything like
Oh my
that. So
God.
completely cut off from the world, and
You're
everything's
immersed.
new. Yeah, exactly. And just all of the travel that I did that year. And then lastly, it is travel. By the time I was 22 years old, I had been to 24 different countries. And
Wow, that's so cool.
yeah, all of those layers, just visiting the world's most beautiful cities and seeing different things and different cultures and the different smells and colors and patterns and all of that stuff just layers in. And I remember we were going to get a sitter for our kids so Stephen and I could go to Paris. And my mom was like, load them up, take them with you. And I was like, I don't know about taking a 2-year-old to Paris. And she
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
why not? She was like, everywhere they are, they're learning something. They're little
Yeah.
sponges. And she was like, just take them with you and they'll be learning every step of the way. So,
Oh my God, you're inspiring me because Ben and I keep saying, oh, next year we'll go to Deco Off or whatever. And we just keep putting it off because my girls are 4.5 and almost 2.
I'm here to tell you,
Picking the pants that I needed. Yeah.
you can get a pizza just about anywhere in Paris. And they also sell chicken nuggets, more
Yeah.
places than you would know. They have them. Sometimes they're not on the menu. So you don't often get to go to the fancy restaurants. I remember a couple of years ago, people were like, where are your favorite places in Paris? I'm like, well, the pizza place that's around the corner from where we stay is a real hit.
That's amazing. But you build like real amazing family memories doing that.
It's great. So take them with you. Don't be afraid.
That is really good life advice that I really needed. Well, we're going to get into our take 10, which we ask everybody at the end. These are our rapid fire questions that aren't necessarily about design, but give us a little peek into you. So what is your favorite food?
I don't know that I have a favorite food outside of when Hadley Keller said bread, I was like, girl, yes.
I know. Bread and butter is wonderful.
I'm a sucker for bread basket. And that's the one thing I'll like break my diet for. If you put a nice yeast roll in front of me in a basket and it's warm, I'm not going to be able to walk away. And I love a croissant. I mean, just, a baguette. It doesn't, any bread, really, I'm down
Yeah,
for it.
I'm with you. There's not much better than like warm bread and butter and
Oh,
flaky
it's
salt.
really not. Yeah. Oh, yum. Yes. Yes.
What is your favorite drink?
My favorite cocktail right now is a ranch water. So, sparkling water, plenty of fresh lime juice, and tequila.
Yeah, it's such a classic. Anything tequila, I love.
And it's the sleep thing for me right now, too. Red wines tend to wake me up in the middle of the night, and so does vodka. So now I'm down to tequila.
I know. Someone was telling me recently tequila is like the cleanest
Mhm.
that you can drink. And so I've found that with wine that I'm waking up in the middle of the night. So I can't really drink it that often anymore.
I love it, but I just can't do it.
Favorite film?
I really love the Thomas Crown Affair. Either one,
It's
the
such a
old
good
one or the
one.
newer one. Yeah.
Yeah.
All that, those Michael Kors clothes
Yeah.
for Rene Russo and Pierce Brosnan. And then, yes, the original, just either one of them. They're such beautiful and the whole movie is so clever. And I like the interiors and I don't know, just a lot of fun.
Favorite hotel?
I have two. Winter at Christmas is Claridge's for me.
Yeah, it's so special.
Yeah, just the high tea and all of the decorations and Mayfair on the streets, and it's
Yeah, they
cold
do it
and
right.
chilly. Yeah, it's just perfect. And then the summer, I like the Bastille de Gourd in Provence.
That has been on my list forever. It looks so beautiful.
Go for sure. It's as fabulous as it seems.
Favorite city?
For sure, Paris.
Yeah, I think most designers would agree. Favorite bedding?
Porto.
Yes, I was going to say, I'm thinking of your bedroom, and I had a feeling you were going to say Porto.
I encourage my clients to invest in it too. And I've done the same thing you were talking about with Rita. Every time there's a sale, I buy something. And even
Yeah,
if it's just a pillowcase, but just to keep adding to it. And, so and it lasts forever.
it has an heirloom quality to it that you can pass down, which is really nice.
Yes, and I think sometimes clients get wrapped up in like, well, is this the right pattern or will it always match or what if I change? And
Right.
I even like it when when it doesn't match. I think there's a reverse snobbery there that's really fabulous. So
I agree. I think it's like Rita's a great example. And also when Mika was on, she talked about the anchovy in the room. And I think bedding is a really good way to do that. Tea or coffee, and how do you take it?
I have a double shot of espresso first thing in the morning, and then I have either iced or hot green tea after that, depending on the season.
Yeah, I can't. If I have coffee, I can only have one. Otherwise, I'm jittery all day.
Yeah.
Favorite playlist?
I love music, all music, any kind of music. I just really love it. I'm really inspired by it. And so it depends on where we're going. Girl, do we need some hip hop? Do we need some jazz? What do we need for this moment in time? I can
love
go with
that.
any playlist.
I love that. Favorite weekend activity?
If we're talking about what I do, I would love for it to be like playing tennis, but I don't do that every
Yeah.
weekend. Well, the one thing I do every weekend for myself that I really enjoy is Tracy Anderson. And especially if it's a live, I just really enjoy that kind of.
I got super into Tracy, and I was doing Sculpt Society too for a while, and I tore my meniscus, and so I
Oh,
can't do it anymore,
no.
and I loved it. It is so
Oh,
fun.
man, I
Such a
hate to
fun
hear that.
workout.
Yeah, it is. It makes me feel really good afterwards, and those
Yeah.
endorphins and everything. It's doable for me. So at this moment in time, so it feels good to release the stress and the feel good and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's such a happy workout. Like, you feel so good
It
after.
really is. So
This is a hard one and the last one. What is your favorite design book?
The one that I use the most, my go-to kind of Bible for interiors, is Frances Elkin's book by Stephen Solney. I love the new
Yeah.
one too, but she's kind of the godmother, and she just everything's so timeless that she did. I just learned so much from it. And then I also use Brian and Thomas's Bunny Melon Style a lot as a manual too.
Yeah, that's a great book.
Yeah, just flipping through the images of Bunny's house to see, if I'm doing like a custom breakfast room table, like what's the base on her table? Like
Right.
what kind of chairs did she put around the kitchen table? I don't know, just stuff like that. I use that really as a reference, but I'm really inspired by Frances Elkin's interiors.
Yeah, that is a wonderful book. I have both of them, and I agree that they're both excellent, but in different ways. Well, Caroline, thank you so much for being on.
No, Ariel, thank you. Thank you. Really, seriously. I really appreciate it.
Oh my God, it's such a pleasure. A final few words. We have 2 questions. What are you working on right now? Are there any new projects you can talk about?
Yes, I actually have a book coming out
You
April
do?
2025. Yes.
That's so exciting.
Excited. I
Oh my
just turned in my
God.
manuscript and my photographs. So I guess we're going to start laying it out, and I'm very excited for that. I have a lot of work that I have not pushed out in a long time, and I'm just itching to share it because I'm really proud of a lot of the projects.
Oh my God, that's the best news. I cannot wait to read it. When in 2025?
April.
Oh my goodness. Well, I cannot wait to go to one of your book signings and to
Oh,
read it. I can't wait. That's so thrilling. Congratulations.
you're coming out in fall. Maybe we
Yes, we need
will
to team up.
team up on the road.
I would love, love, love that. Our final question that we ask everyone, do you have advice for someone looking to define their own interior style?
Well, I don't know. I just think you've got to get really comfortable with who you are and what you love, and not be ashamed of that, and lean into it. Be proud of what you love and who you are and where you came from.
Totally. I love that. I think when you're unabashedly and authentically gravitating toward the things that you like, a space kind of reveals itself better than when you're trying to contort it into something else.
Yeah, and be something that you're not and that doesn't actually fit you. If people will be more comfortable because you'll be more comfortable.
Yes, I love that. Well, where can listeners find more about you and your firm and the book eventually?
Mainly just on Instagram at Caroline Gidiere Design.
Amazing. I love it. I'm so thrilled to have you on. This was such a delight.
Me too, Ariel. And I hope to get to meet you in person sometime soon.
Yes, you have to tell me the next time that you are up here.
I'll do it.
And I think that I will be coming down by you on book tour as well,
Yay!
which will be really fun.
That will be great. We'll have to get together.
Yes, I can't wait. Well, thank you so, so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And you are the best.
You are. You are.
That's a wrap for this week's episode of Talk Shop. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with more thoughtful discussions and amazing guests. Make sure you follow on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify so you never miss an episode. And of course, follow me at Ariel Okin. See you next week.